and all of you who are a part of this space, for the leadership of our students who are joining us here today. And if you were with us last time, you got to see the powerful video that they shared, and we're going to invite their voices in just a little bit to talk a little bit about why this matters to them. But we just wanted to pause and say thank you for being with us last week, and that as we move through this process, our process that is about greater inclusion, a process that is about addressing systemic and structural racism. As we move through this process, know that it is a process of open communication, that it is a process where we want to hear from each other. It is a process that is not a finished thing, right? So as we often talk about this work, the road is being made as we walk it, right? As we move through it. So we are learning things, and as we learn things, we make adjustments and edits. But we know that what is important is that we stay connected to the vision and the commitment. And so we welcome your voice and your input, and we're going to continue today moving through the action plan. We did not get to finish that, but we are actually here today because you said so. Right? You said to us last Friday that wasn't enough. We need more time. We need more opportunities to hear in more depth. And so working with Deb and Stephanie, we figured out, okay, let's get back together and let's do it in the immediate. So not wait a month, not wait 6 weeks. Let's get folks back together so we can stay in the process of engaging. The intention in this space is to roll out the plan, right? To let folks know what we're thinking and how we're going to kind of structure the process. And in the process is where we will get into the nitty gritty of how we will do all of that, right? And so this space is not necessarily one that's going to address all of the intimate details around how we will actually carry out the function. But we do welcome your thoughts around that, such that when we get into that we have that on the plate or on the table so that we can make sure we're considering all those things. Does that make sense? Right? So it's high level, rolling out the thoughts, and there will be shared opportunities for involvement and so on. So again, our anti-racism and inclusion action plan. We will turn it over to Stephanie in a moment, but one of the things that's centered in this action plan is in addressing and engaging anti-Blackness and anti-Black racism, and how that as a foundational dynamic to navigate is at the core of this plan. One of the things that was so powerful about the voices of students in the videotape last week was that students named very clearly that all lives can't matter until Black lives matter. And I found that very telling, that students across racial dynamics name that truth for them. And I just want to invite a couple of voices in to be able to speak to what that means for them and why that felt really important. So with us today is Yusef and Jaya, who was a part of the actual videotape, and as well as Caleb, who wasn't a part of the videotape, but is also another student and very powerful voice here. So we want to open it up to their voices, just to kind of speak to kind of what that means for them and why that feels important as we move into this work. Does that feel all right? Okay, so why don't we go with Yusef, Jaya, and then Caleb?
Right on. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Jamie. This is it's an absolute honor to be here, and thank you all so much for working so hard through this and to push through this and support this. So obviously, first off, this is very important. It's very important work, because especially with the current climate, right, that has like there is recently a reawakening regarding anti-Blackness and its dangers. And sorry, it says my connection is unstable, so if it cuts off, forgive me. But basically, there's this reawakening, realization of the dangers of anti-Blackness that is going on. And it is very important to make the best of this, this movement, right, to actually make sustainable change in all of our institutions. So when we speak of institutional racism, we're speaking racism which I intentional, and West Valley College happens to be an institution. And with that said, it is very important to use this platform of this institution to promote positive change in the direction we'd like it. And so this is why it's very important to stand behind this and really work with anti-Blackness and against racism in general. Obviously, I will also note.
You still there?
I'll
Thank you. Thank you. We appreciate your voice and your perspective. Why? Let's go ahead with Jaya.
Hi, how are you guys? It might be a little noisy. I'm walking to work right now, but I feel like right now this anti-Blackness, anti-racial. Sorry, I'm like out of breath. It's really important because it's not only like our future going on right now, but it's our future generations that are going to be affected by this, and they're really going to like thrive and flourish if we do make a really big change with this. Because right now, if you look, I don't know who else is on. I'm on TikTok, so definitely there's a big younger influence on that app, and you hear them talk about how they don't feel welcomed in society, and they have to do things to fit in for themselves. But it shouldn't be like that for anybody at all. So I'm gonna make it short and simple. Just like this is a change that has to happen, and we're definitely gonna try our best to do it. And I have to head into work right now, but I'm so sorry that's so short. But thank you guys so
No,
much. I
thank
really
you.
appreciate it.
It says something that you made a commitment to be here, Jaya, as you were trying to navigate multiple things. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. You guys have a good one, okay?
All right. Thank you. Thank you. And Caleb.
Hello, everyone. Caleb here. Yeah. Also, obviously, I do think this is really important too. I think a very important part of this is just spreading awareness, because there's many things such as microaggressions that we don't even pick up anymore. Like people of the African American community don't even pick up anymore because they're so used to experiencing that stuff. And the people who are, um, you know, uh, committing these acts of microaggression or these acts of bias, they might not even be aware of their biases. So to be able to spread awareness and information like this to end anti-Blackness on campus not only ends the conscious anti-Blackness, but the unconscious. It will allow for Black students who aren't aware of the prejudice they're facing to become more aware and speak up and combat that, and it will allow people to confront their prejudices, so those who actually care about changing will be able to change those prejudices and make their companions aware too, so to further promote change. And yeah, I feel like this is just really important. So yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thanks so much, Caleb and Jaya and Yusuf. Thank you for your voices and your perspectives, not only on the video, but for showing up today. Student voices and perspectives are so grounding and important for us as we move into the space. It's real for us, again, that as we have listened to your voices as faculty and staff, that there have been some concerns about some of the details. And as we said, we will certainly welcome that feedback, and we will tease those things out. We'll keep those things on the table. But there's also been some concerns about the focus of the this initial round being around anti-Black racism, right? And so we just want to be upfront and transparent about that, and just really kind of name, and hopefully we can, in full transparency, have us see that that the work that we are doing as we focus our attentions in this first round on anti-Blackness is work that benefits all minoritized folks across race, right? So addressing anti-Blackness is addressing, right, the concerns of other minoritized folks, brown folks, multiracial folks, mixed folks, indigenous folks. And we also recognize there is a nuance to how this shows up within the Latinx and Chicano communities. There's nuanced differences of what it looks like for PITA and DESI communities. And so we're not at all saying, as we move into this experience, that just looking at this through the lens of anti-Blackness is a generalization or broad sweep that's going to get all of the nuanced differences of other minoritized communities. And given our current context, I want us to hold the context and the history of the US and anti-Blackness and white supremacy as bookend dynamics that we're navigating. The focus of the plan as we start has an anti-Blackness lens, right? And I appreciate Patricia saying, what are some of the concerns you are referring to? So there's been, there is actually, it's been some questioning of why would we be engaging the work of anti-racism with a focus on anti-Blackness, and what about other minoritized, racialized communities, right? And so we don't want to pretend like that's not out there, nor do we want to pretend like that doesn't matter, right? Because we're not saying that a focus with an anti-Blackness lens is saying that Black matters more than others. We're saying understanding the context and how systemic racism plays out, that working anti-Blackness and looking at that heads us in the right direction to address certainly the dynamics for Black folks, but also other BIPOC folks as well, right? So that's what we are seeking to do. And I think it really is important that it is clear that that you understand as we are navigating this process that we are in, we would never say that other people of color's lives and experiences are less important. That is not what this is about in any way. And we can appreciate that it can feel like that. And that's one of the dynamics of systemic racism, right? And so it begins to play out that then pits BIPOC folks against each other, Black and brown and indigenous folks against each other. Well, they don't matter as much as us, or what about us? That's the dynamic, that as long as we spin in that place, then we maintain status quo, right? So we just want to kind of offer that as we continue to move through the plan. And so I'm going to hand off to Stephanie now to kind of finish up, and then we'll just kind of open up the space for us to hear impact or questions or anything else that we feel like we need as we begin to move forward.
Thank you so much, Jamie. I appreciate you setting a context for us and inviting student voices in. I particularly want to thank Yusuf, Jaya, and Caleb, who have been my personal advisors, my advisory committee on issues related to our African American students and addressing our environment on the campus and how to make it better. So I am so appreciative for the three of you and your ongoing wisdom and willingness to share it with us, and particularly with me. So thank you for being here. I'm going to now go directly back to the Anti-Racist and Inclusion Action Plan that we reviewed last week, and we left off on page 7. So that's where I'm going to start. Can everybody see this? Can you see the action plan? Okay, great. So we left off on page 7.
Stephanie, I can see it. Can you make it a little bigger?
Yes, I can. Is that better?
Yes, much better.
Okay, great. So we went over the 5 overarching goals, goals A through E. And what I want to do now, just in a few minutes, is share with you how we've broken those goals out. Hopefully you have all had a chance to go and take a look at the document yourself. It is posted on our social justice. We actually created a new page for this anti-racism work, and I believe that has been shared via email, but we can also put it in the chat again. So the goal, for example, the goal A here is the unearthing, examining, acknowledging, and identifying concrete actions to account for the racial history of West Valley College. Under that, we have multiple sub-goals. So we have 3 sub-goals here, and then if we scroll down, you will see that under each sub-goal, we have specific actions that are recommended. These actions are not exhaustive. They are not exhaustive. They are meant to indicate a good starting point. But if the working group feels that other things should be added or things there should be modified, that is something that's a flexibility that is available to the wisdom of the working groups. So, for example, under A1, examining the racial history, we have a number of bullet points that are action items: conducting research via interviews, sharing findings with the campus community, identifying and removing campus rituals, symbols, and artifacts that contribute to racial inequities, and so forth. So these are examples of places to start. They could restrict themselves to these bullet points, or they could change and modify. And under the second bullet point, same thing, under the second sub goal of disaggregating student data, same thing. We've given you a place, what we believe is a good starting point and would be good data to collect. But in the process of examining that data, this subgroup may say, hey, there's another data set that would be helpful to us. Let's reach out and get that. So that is the construction of this document, that we have the overarching goals, the sub-goals, and then the recommended actions. But I want to emphasize the flexibility of those bullet points and those actions, okay? So that's the structure going through. Let me just bring up, oops, sorry. I want to also talk about the participation of groups. So what we're going to be doing, let me see if I can show you this document or if I need to stop sharing. I think I need to stop sharing and then start sharing again. So let me try that. So what we're going to do in terms of next steps is we are going to send out an application, and people who are interested in participating on these working groups can complete an application. And so let me share my screen so I can show you what that application looks like. So this application here will be sent out today. And it's essentially, this is a voluntary commitment. If you want to participate in this, you send your name and other information. And there are different participation options. You can be a standing member, which means you're going to attend all of the meetings and you're going to do all of the work involved. You could be a contributing member, which means you are going to participate in special projects and not attend every meeting. You can be drop-in, anybody can drop in, or you can sign up for an email list. So there are multiple ways to participate. And then we ask you to select your first, second, and third choice of which work groups you'd like to be on. And the reason we do this is that we don't want to have 50 people all wanting to be on one subgroup. So we'd like to distribute folks evenly and based on what their interests are. And so then we go into these first, second, and third choice. We want to know why you want to be a member of these work teams and what role you think these working groups should have on our campus. A couple of other questions. So that is the application. We also have a special application. Now let me see if I switch over. I think I have to stop and then start again. We have a special application just for the B1 curriculum review, the working group, because this is very focused on faculty. Cheryl Miller is leading this. And I believe, Gretchen, you're going to send this out to all faculty shortly. So this is a particular application just for this subgroup. For faculty, the subgoal is led by faculty, and it's for faculty who are interested in participating as a standing member, a participating member, and so forth. So that's the next step in terms of where we're going with this plan. I'd also like to share with you, let me see here, a wonderful training that Dr. Washington will be providing to us regarding Canvas course for staff and faculty, an anti-racism Canvas course in the month of November. It's developing an anti-racist lens, becoming an anti-racist practitioner, and building an anti-racist organization. So these are really wonderful, wonderful continued trainings, learning circles facilitated by Dr. Washington. I encourage you all to sign up. And so we're really excited, and I want to express my gratitude to you, Jamie, for this wonderful sharing of your wisdom and facilitating these great discussions. So those are our next steps. We are also going to, once we get the working groups identified, the group leads will participate in an anti-racism retreat with Dr. Frank Harris and Dr. Luke Wood. And then all working group members will participate in a 2.5-day retreat to get us grounded in perspective, theory, scholarship, research, orientation, get all of our questions answered so that we can move forward with clear hearts, clear minds, and an alignment of direction. And all of this work then is, the work on the plan is then going to begin in January 2021. So that is our plan for the plan. For the implementation of the plan. We're really excited about it. We want to be very intentional. And I think it's a very well-structured orientation to move forward with the plan. So with that, I want to turn it back to Reverend Doctor. And I think we're ready for questions at some point, but
yeah, well, thank you.
Jamie.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Stephanie. And let's give a thumbs up and appreciation for the work, right? For the work. And folks, what's important, I think, right now is that we recognize that this that we're showing up in now is clearly best practice, right? And what I want to name, and why I want to name that is, so some of you know that I spend my time in the world every day working with colleges and universities across the country, right? And many also higher ed adjacent organizations. And the world actually shifted, right? On May 25th of this year. So we know that Black lives has mattered. We've known that we've been committed to creating diverse and inclusive organizations and campuses. And that's been the path that West Valley has been on. It's the path, it's the commitment to community college education, right? To create access and openness and to be a space for all. So that's kind of who we are, right? At the core. At the same time, all of our organizations exist within a system of institutionalized racism, right? And as a result, that even our best intentions can be fraught with unconscious and implicit bias and structural dynamics that do harm to some and advance others, right? And so institutions, from February-ish to May, I spent most of my time preparing institutions to engage the value of diversity, equity, and inclusion in a virtual environment, right? Because as we moved into COVID-19 hit us, and the next thing we were to do was move everything to virtual. And how do we get everything? And so we had to navigate who has access, who doesn't have access, safety, all of the kinds of dynamics of work at home with children, all of those things. And we knew that at the beginning of that moment that the dynamics of systemic oppression and racism were going to be in the mix, but it wasn't going to show up at the beginning. Folks weren't going to see it at the beginning. As we were 2-3 weeks in, we began to see, even though the COVID-19 virus started with a racialized lens of the Chinese disease, right? So this impact on Apita folk was very real, a blaming of, right? While that subsided a bit, it still was the message from the highest levels of our country. So race was already in it, right? But as we move through April and March, it wasn't until May, after Breonna Taylor had been killed and after Ahmaud Arbery had been killed, that the tipping point was the killing of George Floyd. And that moment shifted not only higher education's focus, but it shifted the country's focus around here is a moment, it's a groundswell where we must begin to address creating anti-racist campuses and particularly addressing anti-Blackness. Some of you may have heard the acronym BIPOC, Black and Indigenous and People of Color. Prior to May 29th, or 25th, that didn't really exist, right? Not a whole lot of people had heard of it. It wasn't in a common vernacular, and still a lot of folks don't know it, but Black and Indigenous people of color. Now, I'm not making that the right acronym or any of that. I'm not saying that. But in that moment, there became a need for the centering of Black and Indigenous lives in the conversation. And so since then, institutions have been looking at how do they actively and intentionally create anti-racist campus organizations. Many folks have tried to do that with a training. So, okay, we're going to have a training and everybody's going to have a training. And once everybody has had training, click. Now we're not anti-racist no more. Thank you all so much for coming. It's all done. We all know that training cannot be your anti-racism or any culture change strategy. It can only be a part of it, a very necessary part of it, but it is not the thing that shifts the culture, right? What shifts culture is intentional strategy, action plans, and engagement. And that's what this is. So I think I see a hand right there. I can't see your name. I think it's Rebecca. Is that right?
It is. And
Okay.
But I'm wondering, and I'm hoping that you can give us the time that is left so that we can discuss.
Yeah.
Appreciate the overview, but last week when I requested a part 2, it was for us to be able to dive in and discuss amongst ourselves.
Well, yeah, we're ready to do that, but we also wanted to provide some framing and some, additional comments. So we're ready now for
Yep.
that
Thank
conversation
you.
to
And
happen.
I don't mean to cut you off. It's just that we're halfway through and I want to make sure we have time.
Sure.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And so we just want to be clear about the practice, right? So that what we're in now is the moment that we are actively, strategically engaging how we move forward. Okay. And so with that, we want to create space for voices and perspectives, impact of hearing, questions as we move into our time.
Are there any questions now? Yes, Rebecca.
I have several, but I'll start with one so that everybody else gets a chance to ask one question each. It's more of a suggestion, and it's for it's under A1 for Chris Dyer. When looking at A1 on page, I think it's page 11, it's under retention. I want to be sure that when we get the data, no, it's on page 8, I'm sorry, that when we get data about student retention of Black African-American students, that we get data that is separate from the Umoja data, because programs like Puente and Umoja are fabulous. Those are the programs where, you know, our Black and Latinx students are loved and supported and very successful. But I want the data. Where are our other Black students? Where's our other Latinx students, and how are they doing? The ones that are not part of those communities, because those communities are going to skew our data in a highly positive way.
Got it.
So I just want to make sure that that's something for Chris Dyer to keep in mind.
Sure, sure. Excellent.
Yeah,
So what Rebecca's is recommending here and inviting us to consider, these are welcomed comments, right? So, you know, as you think about, as you're looking at this, we want to make sure that you don't forget this, right? And so that's just that's a flag for us, right? So let's and so we welcome that. So if any of that is coming up, we are recording this, we are capturing any of these insights. That's why we're sharing it with community. So thank you, Rebecca. Thank you. So other comments or questions that we might be able to respond to. I think I saw Jed's hand. Jed, were you trying to come in?
Well, honestly, right now, more than just like Black Lives Matter and the racial injustice and civil unrest and oppression and bullying and discrimination amongst Black communities, what really frightens me more is seeing disabled students getting a lack of support during a coronavirus pandemic, being bullied because of both their race and disability, and just not even aware of what disabled students like myself are going through right now during this pandemic, whether or not the family member has COVID or not, where the family member has financial issues or not. Right now, in this time, there's just a lack of awareness of the disabled community. And you know how much the disabled community is suffering right now during this crisis.
Yeah, I think that's such a critical point, Jed, that
It's more than just Black Lives Matter.
Yeah, naturally in these spaces, you know, I think that it activates in all of us a greater awareness of how we are members of groups that have been marginalized. I find that happening more and more in my life. Just last night, I had an intense conversation with my daughter about my Asian identity and my female identity in ways that I felt that, you know, I was sort of getting a greater awareness and becoming more unhappy and even upset with the ways that has impacted me. So I think for you, you know, and the great work that you do to advocate for yourself and for other students with disabilities, I think it's a wonderful thing that it activates that greater awareness in that sense that, well, we have rights too, we have needs too, we want our needs met. And that's what I'm really hearing in a lot of this, is that it's activating folks, people's feelings of their needs not being met, and you know, sort of examining how is the college doing in meeting my needs.
Right.
And we are very interested in that. And I want to go back to what Dr. Washington said, which is a very common dynamic in race work, is that people start turning on each other.
That's right.
Because they are fighting over the one crumb that is left for
That's right.
people of color or the disabled or you know, LGBTQ. We're all fighting over a single crumb, and 99% of the pie is being held by those who have privilege. So I think that the beneficial energy, I think the most positive use of our energy and our anger is to direct it to undo the systems that leave us with a single crumb. To me, that is where our energy needs to be focused, is why does this system leave us with a single crumb to fight over, right? And so, but in response to your specific request about when are we going to deal with the rights of the disabled and the oppression for people with disabilities, is absolutely, this is a starting point, as Jamie said. We're starting with focusing on anti-Black racism and becoming very clear about what that looks like and how we're going to respond to it. And we are then going to have a 2.0. And as we move into our 2.0, and that's where I hear a lot of the interest is, what is the 2.0 going to look like? And we're not quite there yet to the 2.0. We're still focusing on, let's get 1.0 off the ground and do a good job at it. And then we can look at the 2.0, which expands to address other communities who are equally marginalized.
And I think what we want to also hold, folks, is the strategic focus in this area will illuminate other things, right? We're going to see some things. We're going to hear some voices, and my hope is that we're not hearing that at some point we're going to say, that don't matter. We doing this. That's not what's being said. That there can be a parallel process. This is what the strategic action plan is doing. But as we're in that, as we bump into stuff, as we come upon stuff, it doesn't mean that those things won't have the opportunities to be engaged and addressed. So as Stephanie is naming, we know that it is important to pay attention to all of it. And we're pretty clear about that. Other voices.
May I say something? May I say
Yes.
something?
Oh.
I would like to address what you said, Jed. I think that's a great point. And just like what Stephanie's saying, to say Black Lives Matter is not to neglect all the other causes, because what a lot of us fail to realize is that all of us who are being oppressed right now, we're all fighting for the same thing. And when the idea that when someone says Black Lives Matter, it's like, it's putting to the side other people. That's a strategy used to separate those who are oppressed, to further like keep those who are oppressing us in their position. Like it's dividing us so we can't unite, because they know if we unite, we'll be able to fight this. Think of it like this. Like Phil told me this analogy yesterday, I think yesterday, anyways. It was like, if you're running for breast cancer, it doesn't mean colon cancer doesn't matter. It doesn't mean you're kicking that out of the equation. Oh, like the breast cancer is the only important. No, it just means you're running for breast cancer. Like it brings awareness to cancer in general. So, well, like he said, this will illuminate other problems. It is in no way just focus on one problem.
Well, and I think that's such a beautiful, thank you for bringing the wisdom of Phil Sevier into this space, because he is such a wise mentor to many of us. And Caleb, thank you for saying it in a way that better than any of us could have said. I appreciate that and totally agree. It is a common dynamic and a tool of the oppressor to keep us fighting over that single crumb, to keep us separated instead of united, as you said, Caleb, so well. Thank you.
And I don't want to.
You're on mute, Jed.
Yeah, and I don't want to waste too much of your time, but I will give you like a kind of like a warning and a heads up. You know, there is people that are permanently disabled because of COVID-19.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's people disabled because of this current virus, and there's a
Yeah.
lot of people not even paying attention to that.
Right.
I mean, is what's even breaking my heart more.
Indeed, and thank you for keeping that top of mind for us, Jed. What I'm so proud of is that, sorry, you're on mute. Is that we have such a terrific DESP program that is one of the, I think, the best in the state that supports our students. So I'm proud of the work that is done through DESP to support students with disabilities, and I think that's where we start, but we expand from there. So I just want to acknowledge the great work that is done, but also acknowledge, as you said, there's more work to be done. There are people who've been disabled by COVID, and we need to support them as members of our community. I want to give an opportunity for Yalem. She had her hand up.
I just want to say something because I sometimes get emotional. I wanted to ask you, when this Black Lives Matter started, it was because of George Floyd, right? But that has been going on then for many, many, many years, and many have died. But one thing I have to ask is, I am a mother. When my children go outside, I don't know if they're going to come back. Do you have that fear as any other race? I just want that to be answered. So when somebody starts this kind of motion, many other people will come and say, what about me? What about me? We're not disregarding anybody's fight. It's a big fight for all of us, but I want you to remember this. Your color makes you a target. End of the story. It doesn't matter what language you speak. It doesn't matter where you came from. It doesn't matter who you are. If you are Black, you are the #1 target. So how could somebody compare everything else with that? I want somebody to answer me, and that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Well, I can answer and speak for myself. I don't, as a mixed race Asian woman with mixed race Asian children, I don't have this, and their daughters too, I don't have the same fear that you have. I don't suffer from the same, I am not in that same oppressed category that I have to fear for my children's lives, which is what separates you, Yalem, from me and from others, when you have to fear for your child's safety just walking out the front door. And I think that's a terrific point. I don't know if anyone else wants to speak to that.
Can I say one more thing?
Yes.
Y'all, yeah, I agree. That is something that cannot be ignored. Like, I do have the fear every time, like, I kind of step outside or go driving around with my friends that someone will misperceive me and I won't make it home. Mm-hmm. But I don't think in any way anyone was trying to compare their issues to, the struggle, our struggle. And yeah, I just want to stress that, so we stay united. And yeah.
Thank you, Caleb. Yeah, that's a beautiful support for Yalem. And, I think it's also really important how we show up for each other in these spaces. What I love is all the mention in the chat, all of the comments in the chat, supporting each other. This is a brave space we're establishing, right? To speak up and say things that are hard to say. And I so appreciate Yalem and everyone who has spoken up. And I appreciate the supporters too. Yes. And Caleb, thank you. I see Phil's hand is up.
Mm-hmm. How y'all doing? One of the things I think about as we embark on this work of just the difficulty of the transition, right? I think that, especially when we speak of like institutions and systems, lives that we've grown up in and paradigms that we know. There's a quote from James Baldwin that I love, and he says, "Any real change implies the breakup of the world as one has always known it, the loss of all that gave one an identity, the end of safety." And I think that as we embark on this, it's like, I expect to see everything that we're seeing and that we're feeling, because a lot of us don't feel safe already, but it's just the transition is going to be an end of safety and a new perspective on our identity. So, as we embark on this work, I think we also need to make space for that transition of not knowing what comes next, not for ourselves, for others, and also stepping into the unknown because we don't know what it looks like. And it's tough, it's difficult, but that's, if we don't experience that, then there will not be any type of real change.
Exactly.
I agree. I would also say, Phil, one of the things that I think is natural in this process is we have to be more aware of our own ego and how it gets in the way of the good work, right? Our own ego, the sole purpose of our ego, or primary purpose, correct me if I'm wrong, Ray, primary purpose of our ego is to make us feel like we are good and worthy people, regardless of how we behave and how we think. And the ego can get in the way of us saying, I do have ways I need to improve. I have been thinking in ways that are not healthy. And in the beautiful way that Phil just said, that this is going to be uncomfortable. This is a brave and dangerous space. I think that was so beautifully stated, Phil, as always. The man of the hour, the wise man of the hour, Phil, is helping us understand how this is not always easy work, but it's so important. So thank you, Phil, for those really, really important contributions.
I have something to say.
Sure, Deborah.
What a journey this has been, right? If you think back to right after George Floyd was murdered and the first forum, and where we are now, we're still talking. We may not all have the same perspectives. We may not all share the same pain, but we're still talking. I'm sure Jamie could tell you that a lot of campuses are not talking. We should be proud of ourselves that we have a plan and we're talking about a plan. Even if there's parts of the plan that we can tweak and fix, we have something to do. I remember when I was working on my PhD program and I was stuck in this class and I couldn't write. I couldn't. And the professor was like, if you don't send me something, I won't be able to critique it and you're going to be stuck. The plan, let's critique it and let's get unstuck. Let's stop talking about we celebrate diversity in our mission statement, that we want to feel safe on our campus, that we have a dean of equity and success. Let's be in action. So I am very excited and very proud of you all, 79 people on a Friday, that we're in discussion about this and that we continue to be in discussion about it. Is it painful? Absolutely. Is it frustrating? Absolutely. But this is the world that we're in. This is not a bubble of West Valley. This is the world that we're in. And so I just want to say, continue with the comments. Send me your emails, join a committee, be involved. We're all committed to mobilizing the campus to be better. So that's my ask, is just be with me, with Stephanie, with all of us in trying to contribute to what we're hoping it can become. It's just a draft, if you think of it, because we want to get better. But the only way you can do it is take it out, take your safe red pen out and contribute to making those changes.
Yep. Rebecca.
Thank you, Deborah. And you pointed out that Reverend Dr. Jamie has said that not all campuses are having this kind of dialogue. And I don't want it to be lost that we are speaking, but that you and Stephanie are listening, and you have led this charge, and it is not coincidence. I want everyone to see you. We have 2 female of colors leaders. That is not lost on me, right? And maybe other colleges don't have strong women of color in leadership positions, which goes back to the importance of hiring and having people of color in leadership positions. So thank you for hearing us and creating the space and this draft, because I know you have spent numerous hours working on this. So Thank you. And in terms of work, I want to get this one last comment in because Caleb mentioned that oppressed people are working very hard or have worked very hard. And going back to that application that you set up, I think it's really important for what it's worth that you really think about incentivizing and compensating the people who have been working on this, on anti-racism, and who will, because historically, the people who care about this are the people who have been in the marginalized, oppressed category. And now the ask is that we really step it up and do this work. And I see things in the plan like having multiple languages for our marketing, right? Having students create that. And I want you to think about treating that as labor, because it is. Because someone being bilingual and bicultural and giving that experience for the college or working on curriculum, making sure that it's anti-racist, that is labor. And I know, we tend to put things in institutional responsibility, but we also know that historically the colonizers, number one tool is the exploitation of people's labor. And the people who end up carrying this load have always been activists, have always been the people who are doing this labor for free, and we are exhausted. And the people who are going to benefit from it or not, they could just tune this out and say, well, other people are going to lead the charge. So I say, if you have students translating marketing materials, making videos, compensate them. And your faculty with PG&D, with release time, with a stipend. That also ties into the guided pillars work of students and faculty, for students feeling valued. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you, Rebecca.
So
Excellent
beautifully
point.
said. And I just want to echo what Rebecca is saying. And it again, as we talk about this is a best practice, Becca, thank you, Rebecca. Thank you for acknowledging the leadership of women of color. Thank you for, again, also recognizing that this is labor and it's additional labor at this moment in time, and the importance of how we are recognizing that labor is also a best practice, right? So yes, as Deborah named beautifully, we are still in it, and we must pay attention to not just putting more on people, particularly from minoritized communities who are in this work. So thank you. Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to thank you all as well for your comments, and I'm going to hand it off to Stephanie to kind of close us out, but know that I continue to be in this process with you, and we are going to continue moving West Valley forward. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Jamie. I do see one more hand, Dulce. I see your hand up. Please go ahead.
Yes, I want to thank you, Deborah, for your words. And I think that is what I'm looking for, is for collaboration and for listening sessions, not from top down. This is a plan that we've designed for all of you. And so I appreciate your words, and I appreciate this opportunity, and I appreciate the fact that there are 82 people here. And that's what I want to see. That is what I think is the work that needs to be done, so that all of our voices are heard and to whatever degree implemented into whatever the plan ends up being. Thank you.
82 people voluntarily.
Yeah, I think
Exactly.
I think that we probably haven't had the opportunity to work a lot together, but I'm sure there will be many people on this call that can tell you I am far from top down, and that I really strive to be very collaborative, because I can't do this lifting by myself. I am so clear about that. And I'd be more than happy to tell you how things come about. I invite you to join some of the subcommittees. If it was top down, there would be no subcommittees. There would be no application process. there'd be no forums. We would just have put up this plan and been like, let's go forth. I've been a part of that many times at San Jose State. I have seen how it has failed time and time again. I have been very thoughtful in making sure this is a campus plan. So I'm more than happy to meet with you offline and talk to you more about it. But I know that we don't have time to have everybody chime in, but I am far from top down. That is not how I operate. I know that we can't do this without all of you.
Thank you, Deborah. I posed 2 questions. If someone could answer them, please.
Was your question about who will be making decisions about who will be on committees, that one?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so it'll be a conversation between the leads, Stephanie's leadership team, which is currently Stacy Glexner, the provost, Rick. Sorry.
I think the dog said, I want some say in this.
Be quiet. And so we'll sit down. But again, we're giving you so many different choices to be involved that I don't think that anybody won't be considered or put on a committee in some way. I'm looking for your answers to the questions and being very thoughtful about that. I want people that want to help move this and not just be a part of the committee. So really, it's really up to you and how you want to be involved. There's 4 different ways into how you can be involved in all the committees. So I don't see that. I don't see us turning anybody away. I think we're just going to be very thoughtful on what committees people will end up on, which is why you're given first, second, and third choice.
Thank you. Thank you for your questions, Dulce, and comments. And thank you everybody for being here today. I am so proud of this college, 82 people showing up on a Friday. I am so grateful for Dr. Washington's presence and leading of this and helping to frame this and creating a brave space. I'm grateful for Phil Severe's leadership. Your thought leadership is so critical, Phil, during this time. And you really are leading us forward so bravely. Deborah's also incredible, courageous work around this, and really she has been doing a lot of the heavy lifting. And I also want to ask all of you to, I want to share with you that, I want to thank Rebecca for your acknowledgement about, female leadership and so forth. I really appreciate that. And I want to let you know, sometimes it's really hard for us, even at this level, we get a lot of pushback. You might be surprised at how much pushback we get and how hard we have to push and what a struggle it is. I know each of you have to do that at your levels. We also have to do that. And so I want to ask for your support as we do this work, because we are doing everything in our power. I guarantee you, every space we are in, we are pushing, we are challenging, we are setting high expectations that this community college is going to be different from other community colleges. And it's not always easy. So I would just say, I ask for your support in that. I think you showing up here is that kind of support that I really appreciate and speaks to your values and your interests. I want to commit to you that we are going to implement this plan, and we want to continue to offer spaces for the kinds of things that have been shared today. I want to acknowledge also Heidi, thank you for sharing about your transgender child. I agree, you have fear about a transgender child walking out the door and their safety in the same way that African-American mothers and fathers fear for the safety of their children walking out the door. So I want to make sure we are honoring the vulnerability also that has been in this space. That is very powerful. And thank you, Lenore, for your comment about how our experiences are different, and it's important not to paint them with the same brush. They are different. They are qualitatively different, and we need to acknowledge that. So my gratitude to all of you. My gratitude to Jamie. Thank you, Jamie, for leading us in this really critical work. You've been amazing, and you've brought all of your wonderful wisdom to us. And so thank you all. The work is not done, it's just beginning. And I look forward to joining with you hand in hand, moving forward to make this a more equitable, better, and loving space for our students. Thank you all.